Come on, teach it. Teach it. Teach it.
So you know what? I'm just gonna stay home. Idolatry creeps in real stuff. You start saying stuff like, "Ain't nobody like my pastor." Start saying stuff like, "My pastor would." What's the word? My pastor would never do that.
All right.
And before long, you shake your head and say, "Yeah, but he's only flesh and blood." But you haven't realized how idolatry has taken root in your heart. Let me tell you something. If I'm gone, it doesn't matter. God is still here. It's not me that speaks to you every Sunday. It's God anyway. Whether I'm at this pulpit or whether I'm not, your draw should be hearing me speak. Your draw should be hearing him speak. And if God can speak through a donkey, then he can speak through a guest preacher, whoever he or she may be. But idolatry will cause you to say, "I'm staying home," if the specific man isn't there.
Teach.
Idolatry will force you to start to compare pastors. I've never heard. It's ridiculous. Comparing preachers.
Teach it.
T.D. Jakes ain't got nothing on so-and-so, and so-and-so ain't got nothing. What are you talking about?
It's the Holy Ghost.
We're nobody. We're nothing. Don't compare preachers. Because honestly, God, I guarantee there is a bum under a bridge right now that could out-preach me, T.D. Jakes, anybody. All God chose to do, and we don't know why, through his sovereignty, all he chose to do was pick us up, dust us off, and say, "I'm going to use you. And if you ever forget that it's me using you, then I will demote you so quick, you won't even remember what hit you." He's only flesh and blood. Your pastor cries real tears.
Teach.
Your pastor bleeds red blood. Your pastor gets tempted. Your pastor struggles. And you should never say he or she would never do anything. You should never ever, because guess what? It's not beyond any of us. See, the reason why the majority of us, including myself, the reason why the majority of us are not in jail right now is because we just didn't get caught.
Come on. Come on.
Not because we don't belong there, but it's just because we didn't get caught. And the pastor is no different. See, you gotta understand, guys, there's a method behind my madness. There's a reason why you will not see me wear a big robe or a collar. And I don't knock pastors that do, but there's a reason why I don't do that for myself, because I don't want to put false separations between you and me. There's a reason why when we get our church building, and one day we will have a church building, I won't be on a lifted podium, because I don't want to convey this image that I'm above you and you guys sit beneath me and you guys need to look up at me every single Sunday. I want to be on an even level with you, because I pray and cry just like you do. I struggle just like you do. I have to go to God every day just like you do. If I don't fast and hold fast to the word of God, I'll stumble and fall just like you will. And I try not to put these false barriers in between us to create this image that Pastor Isaiah is on some super spiritual level that I can't get to. That's how people get frustrated with God. Because they say things like, "If I could only be like the pastor, if I could only be like the pastor," never really understanding that the pastor is wishing he could be like somebody else. Because he or she is only flesh and blood. We deal with pride issues.
Glory.
We deal with people-pleasing issues.
Glory.
Trying to please this group and that group, and we, at the end of the day, sometimes we feel unappreciated, which causes us to get in a shit. Pastors are flesh and blood, and I know we take that as a given, but really think about how the church has perpetuated this idea of the pastor being some super spiritual person. Billboards, and whose face do you see? Love offerings. And a lot of times you're encouraged to give to the love offering before you're encouraged to give to the regular offering. And all that promotes this false idea that the pastor is on a level that he really shouldn't be placed on. Just flesh and blood. Turn to Romans chapter 7.
Glory. Help me.
21. Again, this is the Apostle Paul. Romans chapter 7 is a great chapter to read because Romans chapter 7 kind of talks about the law. Honestly, I call Romans chapter 7 law school. It's a great, great, great chapter to read, but within this chapter, Paul says something very interesting. Again, he wrote the majority of the New Testament. Mighty man of God, powerful guy. Look at what he says in verse 21. He says, so I find this law at work. He says, when I want to do good, evil. It's right there with me. Look what it says. For in my inner being, I delight in God's law. But I see another law at work in the members of my body, waging war against the law of my mind and making me a prisoner of the law of sin at work. Where? Within my members. Within me, there's an internal struggle. Within me, I have a conflict. Let me give you the second thing you ought to know about your pastor. Your pastor, secondly, has a secret struggle. Just like every single person in here has a struggle that everybody, maybe not even your family members, might be privy to, it's the same thing with your pastor. And scandal happens when that secret struggle bubbles over and becomes public news. But let me tell you something. Whenever a pastor gets embroiled in a scandal, I want you to know, if they're guilty of that scandal, that urge, that unction inside of them didn't just happen overnight.
Oh, yeah.
But it's been there. Preaching every single Sunday. Struggling Monday through Saturday. It's been there, festering, lingering. I talked, when I was a youth pastor, and even today, I used to talk to a network of pastors. We used to meet, and it used to be a time where we just talked, and we were open with each other, we were candid with each other. And some of the things that I heard, pastors struggling with, pastors dealing with, on a daily basis, would make any of their congregations question whether or not they should come. Because pastors deal with things. Now, there's a difference between struggling and giving in to a struggle. See, just because you struggle doesn't mean that you give in. Now, if the pastor is consistently giving in to the struggle, then there's a problem. But just know that every single pastor does struggle with something. I guarantee if there's not 3, 4, 5, 6 things that the pastor is struggling with, there is one intense, difficult struggle that nobody knows about. Nobody in the congregation, not even probably that pastor's close friends. It is something that the pastor has chosen to struggle with all by him or herself. It might be right, it might be wrong, the way they're dealing with it. I'm just telling you that you need to know this about your pastor. Whoever it is, he's struggling. She's struggling. You might not know this, but when Martin Luther King was at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, when he got shot, when they went to examine the body, they found in his hand a crushed cigarette. Martin Luther King, the leader of the civil rights movement, the man, the giant, the legend, smoked cigarettes. Some of you guys are like, oh. Yes, he was a powerful man of God, but that didn't stop him from having a struggle that was difficult for him to kick. Every single pastor, which is why you should not be too shocked. Whenever the struggle is revealed, it bubbles over and comes to the light. Because every single pastor is there. That's right. And I'm going to talk about something in just a second. But pastors have to be cognizant of who they reveal themselves to. Right. And so a lot of times the reason why the pastor has a secret struggle, because he feels too vulnerable to tell anybody else. Because he doesn't or she doesn't know if that person is going to go back and tell another person, that person tells another person. And before long, he's being accused of something that he's not acting out on. It's only a struggle and he's just telling people. They're just telling people. And all of a sudden, this mushroom cloud is created. But every single pastor has a secret struggle. Just know that. I don't care how anointed, I don't care how powerful. From Joel Osteen to T.D. Jakes to the pastor with 2 members in his church. Struggle. with something, some type of sin, some type of fleshly desire. Turn to 2 Timothy 4.